It's touted as the biggest export deal in Australia's history, and today the federal government was determined to take credit for it. The 20-year, $50 billion deal to supply liquid natural gas to China from the Gorgon gas fields in Western Australia was 3 years in the making and brings that project to the brink of being realised. The government says this is a sign that relations with China are in good health, but in a rowdy and unruly session in the Parliament, the opposition took umbrage at the government's apparent smugness over the deal. But while the government is talking as if the project is signed and sealed, its own Environment Minister, Peter Garrett, is supposed to be still deliberating on whether he can give it approval on environmental grounds. There's also concern that this huge joint venture will drive domestic gas prices ever higher. Political editor Chris Uhlmann.
Only 7 nations on Earth produce more energy than Australia, and its share is growing.
Australia is now going to be a global superpower supplier of clean energy to the world.
With the world demanding less carbon-intensive power, the massive gas reserves off the northwest coast are becoming ever more attractive. The Gorgon gas field off Barrow Island is the largest known reserve. It's being developed by a joint venture between energy heavyweights. Chevron has a 50% stake and Shell and ExxonMobil have 25% each. And it might turn out to be the most expensive project ever built here.
This is a $50 billion construction job, the biggest in Australia, one of the biggest in the world. There will be at least 6,000 jobs in construction, and we expect construction to start late this year, early next year.
The joint venture partners say there's enough gas at Gorgon to power a city of 1 million people for 800 years. But extracting it will be hard. It means building rigs on the sea floor and piping the gas to Barrow Island. There, most of it will be liquefied and poured into a fleet for the export market. About 5% will be compressed for domestic consumption. Once final approval is granted, the gas field will take 5 years to develop, but the customers are already lining up.
Last night in Beijing, ExxonMobil and PetroChina signed Australia's largest ever export deal, a $50 billion contract to supply liquefied natural gas to China.
And the other important thing about this development, Neil, is that there is significant research going on by Gorgon, at the Gorgon development, to put the carbon back into the ground.
The idea is to siphon off the carbon dioxide extracted with the gas and store it in geological formations under Barrow Island. But the technology for doing that is unproven, so the Commonwealth and West Australian governments have agreed to accept any liability arising from carbon storage.
That was the last big policy issue to be resolved. It's a good result for Western Australia. The Commonwealth accepts 80% of the liability. Western Australia accepts 20%.
Is there any way of estimating the liability?
Well, there's no real way at the moment. The big risks occur during the operational phase of a project like this, where breakages can occur, damage can occur, unexpected things happen. That's where the risks occur, and it'll need special care on the part of the company to make sure that really nothing goes wrong.
Once the well is closed, then on all the scientific evidence, there is minimal or no risk. If there is any risk in CO2 storage, it is during production, and during production it is the absolute responsibility of the joint venture commercial partners, not government.
Barrow Island is also home to an array of rare species, including the threatened flatback turtle. Although there has been mining there for more than 40 years, the Environment Minister is yet to greenlight this project.
With $50 billion on the table now and 6,000 jobs, how likely do you think it is that the Environment Minister is going to stand in the way of this project?
One of the great things about this country is that we need to have due process, and we need to ensure that the laws are enforced, particularly in relation to environmental protections.
Given the unbridled enthusiasm with which the government greeted this gas deal, it's hard to see how Peter Garrett can come up with any answer but yes.
I would congratulate ExxonMobil and the Gorgon partners, Chevron and Shell, on the progress Gorgon has made to date and look forward to seeing the project being brought to a conclusion subject to the completion of environmental processes.
This $50 billion investment is important because it is investment for the long term.
I also welcome the unambiguous support of the deal from this side of the chamber.
The backslapping on the government benches got up the nose of the local member.
I am sick of hearing this government pontificate about their creation of the wealth of the West.
I name the member for Kalgoorlie. I name the member for Kalgoorlie.
And when he was punted from Parliament for being unruly, 6 of the 11 coalition MPs from the West went with him.
One of the greatest exponent and promoters of LNG that the industry has seen in a long time, Ian McPherson, oh my God, my member for Broome, Ian McFarland.
It's worth remembering that part of the West's competitive advantage has been that its resource economy was built on ready access to cheap power. But it's heavily reliant on gas and the price is rising. Domestic consumers worry that the joint marketing proposed by the Gorgon partners will drive their costs higher still.
We think that the domestic market here in Western Australia relies upon 2 things. One is a long-term security of supply and the other is competition. So the price will sort itself out in the domestic market based upon those 2 factors, adequacy of supply and competition from all of the partners.
Most governments on Earth are terrified that they'll run out of energy, and shortly the Rudd government will release its plan to secure the nation's resources into the future. Properly managed, that shouldn't concern this energy-rich country. But in an energy-poor, carbon-constrained world, the only thing that's certain is that the price of power is on the way up.
Political editor Chris Uhlmann.